Far be it from me to criticize the city of Hagerstown and its revitalization plans that have been adopted working with urban partners. But two questions loom at the forefront. Just what is the cost of revitalizing the core, and when are we going to see the private investment? Recently, the city voted on and approved a contract to rehab a single-family home at 64 East Franklin Street in the core. Now again, congrats on following up the dream plan of urban partners, but in this plan, wasn't there supposed to be private funding as well? Something like 82% is supposed to be from the private sector. Now that would be about $120 million out of $145 million. And with the city anting up roughly $25 million over a 10-year period. Well, it appears so far that the only investor in this plan has been the city of Hagerstown and the taxpayers. As stated, this property, located at 64 East Franklin Street, was purchased by the city in August of 2014 for $30,000. Now the city is using CDBG funding of $264,000 to rehab it. Let's do some quick math here. That's nearly $300,000 for a downtown property that is assessed at $133,200. Now, as I've stated before on this show, I'm no rocket scientist, but isn't that like nearly 3 times what the property is worth? I mean, 1,900 square foot for $300,000? I don't mean to sound ungrateful that the city is investing in our core, but I think $157 a square foot is a little high, and with no yard to speak of. I just want to give the good viewers a rundown on how much revitalization is costing us thus far. This $300,000 plus $350,000 for the Patterson Hotel for 4 apartments to house 8 students from the University of Maryland, $260,000 for the City Park Roundabout, which there was nothing wrong with it, another $100,000 for 2 properties on South Potomac Street that have yet to be rehabbed. I don't have the official numbers in front of me, but the old Midtown Motel has to be in the area so far of $80,000 just for the demo and the rehab, and that's just the superficial stuff on the outside. And let's not forget about the almshouse on North Locust Street that I'm sure the city will sink more of the taxpayers' hard-earned money into. Oh, and the soon-to-be path to nowhere. That's another $2 million of our money. All in all, we're looking at roughly $3 million of investment from the city and nearly nothing from the private side. Now, I know some of this money is not general fund taxpayer money, but community development block grant funding. And yes, I also know that's a totally different kind of taxpayer money that every red-blooded American contributes to. And I'm the first to say, let's take it all and use it all and do what we can and let America help. But isn't there other initiatives we could do with this money? Like create jobs? See, jobs would actually help people rehab these properties on their own dime, not our dime. The only job this is creating is for the contractor who got the low bid. There's a fundamental difference in the way of thinking of this administration compared to the last administration. The last administration tried to create initiatives that allowed the private citizen to invest in and be a part of, while making money and creating a strong economic core. This administration? Not so much. But at least Mr. Elshire has seen the light, and now after 15 years believes education in the core is a good thing, and they can build from that. Not like he felt back in 1999 when he was adamantly against the University of Maryland in downtown. Well, enough from me. Jim, what do you got?
Well, number one, Bob, there's no way I can address all of the points you made, very, very cogent points. But, what struck me first was the 80-20 rule. It was supposed to be 80% private investment, 20% public investment. Well, that's, 80-20 is a rule that we all live by in daily life. Well, the other 80-20 rule is that 80% of the projects that the city undertakes fail, and the other 20%, or go over budget, and the other 20% succeed. So apparently this is going to be among the 80%, at least in terms of the budgetary constraints. The other thing that concerns me is that this, at its core, will ultimately, in my opinion, be a redistribution of wealth, because they're going to spend all of this money, and then they're going to sell this property off to somebody at...
Hopefully.
Yeah, well, hopefully. Well, they're going to sell it off, but they're going to sell it off far less than what they had in it, so they're going to create value for an individual. Is that what the city's supposed to do?
And can they even sell it off? Because I pulled up 2 foreclosures in Hagerstown today. All right, we've got a house on Locust Street, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, selling for $12,000. It's worth $64,000. Okay, another foreclosure, Franklin Street, selling for $30,000. 3 bedroom, 2 bath, that's worth $96,000. Okay, both of those properties, they're priced that low probably because they can't move.
Right.
So if those aren't moving, how's the city ever going to recoup the money they're putting into these additional properties?
Well, they're not. there's
No,
no
they
way
don't.
they
And,
can.
and keep in mind that during the city's home ownership program, where we bought properties using CD funds, fixed them up, and then tried to resell them to people for a lesser amount, and we usually helped through the home store, trying to get some additional money and things like that for closing and things like that. Unfortunately, in the last administration, before this one, we ended up gifting those properties that we hadn't sold yet, that we've been sitting on for 10 years plus, to Habitat for Humanity. So, it's great that we want to invest in our core. It's huge, okay? But at this point in this process, at over $3 million, we've already spent half the money in 1 year that a economic development initiative in the core was going to cost the city over 20.
Yeah, but I think too much spending has been done in one small location. The most recent housing facility, what is the name of the hall? It was the hotel. It's going to be, it has 4 units for 8 students.
For 8 students.
For 8 students, and that cost how many hundreds of thousands of dollars?
It was a $720,000 project. The
Right.
city anteed up $350,000 toward that project. $100,000 came from a community legacy grant, but the other $250,000 came out of the city taxpayer funds.
Right.
Okay, they were general fund money.
So-
Now, 8 students for
8.
$350,000. Isn't that like $45,000 per student?
That-
I mean, couldn't you just buy them a house on Locust Street
You
for
could buy each of them a
$12,000? That'd have
Yeah,
changed.
they could all get their own
Yeah.
$12,000 a house, and we'll save a lot of money.
Yeah.
One of the major problems, though, with this whole scheme is the number of Section 8 houses, properties, residences
core.
in the downtown. They are going to lower property values for everybody around it, and it's not going to be feasible to recoup any of the losses from this project. It's a great idea. I love it that they want to revitalize the downtown. I think that students going to USMH need to have housing downtown available for them. 8 spots in 4 residents is a very small place to start. It's a great place to start, but spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands,
$45,000 a person.
hundreds of thousands of dollars for 8 students is ridiculous.
Well,
You know,
but
and I said
they're,
this
they're
before, they
counting
could've-
on the fact
This
that
is going to be an
they're-
income property for them each year.
They're counting on the fact that people are going to look at the optics of the project and not the finances of
An
the
income,
project.
wait a minute.
Right.
You said an income project, for who?
Well,
For the owner of the Patterson
the
Hotel,
owner
which
of
is
the-
not the city of Hagerstown.
Right.
right.
And the city of Hagerstown is guaranteeing the rent if a student doesn't pay the rent.
Interesting.
So we're not just on the hook for the initial, we're on the hook for the long run.
That sounds like a terrible, terrible idea.
Well, it doesn't seem like the right one, that's for sure.
So speaking of terrible ideas, why did we tear up a roundabout just to build another roundabout?
You know something, I was talking to someone today about that, and spent $260,000 on doing it. And I was talking to someone today about that, and it was so funny because I was coming down Virginia Avenue yesterday, and I had to come to the roundabout, okay? And there was a vehicle in front of me who was yielding to the traffic in the roundabout, like they've changed it to now, okay? The car coming around stopped in the roundabout for the car in front of me to go. And the car in front of me didn't go, of course, because he was yielding for the person coming around the roundabout. So it may take a couple years, maybe 50, 60, to get that right. Get people, I mean, 65 years the roundabout was there, it never caused a problem.
I feel like we could talk around in
And then we
circles
changed
about
it.
this one.
Oh, it was just, it's amazing
That was
to
terrible.
me. I had to laugh, though, sitting there. I just had to laugh. I thought, $260,000, and all they really had to do was change signage. But, they didn't. And that's fine. And don't get me wrong. They use some highway user revenue funds. They use, but you could have used those highway user revenues.
Can we use any highway
For
user
something else.
revenue funds to help our downtown housing situation?
No, you can't do it for that, but you can do it to pave streets that need it, like on West Hillcrest, where it feels like you're riding on cobblestones. But you have a whole block there that is just terrible, and nothing's being done about it.
They're going for that old-fashioned look.
I think, maybe, yeah. But it's
You leave
funny.
it long enough and it's called charming.
There you go.
It's funny, but we have an opportunity to do some great things here. We really do. Maybe we could have used a little bit of CG or CDBG funds to put some people to work in the downtown core, cleaning up the streets of the downtown core. Because that's one of the things you hear from everybody is how dirty downtown is, blah, blah, blah. And if you use those funds for that, not only are you giving a person a job, you're doing other things. And, you know, I mean, that's always a possibility to do with some of those funds.
The only dirty thing downtown that I want to clean up is I do not want to see one more pregnant woman pushing a stroller while smoking a cigarette.
I hear you. You got the last word on that. But anyway, stay tuned because next up,
In her
women's health.
pajamas.